Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of the Contrarian. We're thrilled to have back with us Lynn Sweet from Chicago. Lynn, good to see
Good
you.
to be back.
Gregory Bovino. He is the leader of the Midway Blitz in Chicago. He is the person in charge of the Customs and Border Patrol. What's the latest with him?
Well, the latest is he's been in federal court in Chicago, in and out, and he was seated for a deposition the other day where a lot of the time was spent with the lawyers for the government and where the plaintiffs arguing over what question could not be asked, and they ended up in front of the judge who kind of agreed that there's more time being spent lawyering than depositionizing. But this points to the role that Bovino has. And let me just toss out something as a thought bubble here, Jen, because I'm actually interested in your analysis. So right now we have a hold on deploying the National Guard in Illinois. Texas troops were brought up, Illinois National Guard are activated, but they can't go and do anything because of a court order. But here is a thought. Uh, with the National Guard, there are rules, regulations that Trump, he may choose to ignore, but is supposed to follow. That's why we're in federal court, because there are guidelines over when you can deploy National Guard domestically. But now let's look at the Border Patrol, led by someone like Bovino, who is a world of his own. Doesn't it seem like Trump is realizing that maybe he does not need a National Guard, that he may have to not have total control over, meaning go here, go there, I could send you helicopters or whatever. He is, Border Patrol seems to be supplanting ICE in the crackdown on immigration in Chicago, where, by the way, they are taking people into custody, whether or not they are citizens and sorting it out later. But just think, Jen, could this be that Trump, in a sense, has found in Border Patrol his own army that he could just use and get around whether or not a court allows a National Guard to deploy? And with all
I
the
think
recruiting
he's
going on for agents, maybe he could just enlarge it pretty swiftly because the kind of rigorous training that military people go through when they sign up could or could not happen depending on what Christine wants to do.
I think that is clearly the case that he is preferring the Border Patrol over ICE. He has figured out that Border Patrol are the swaggering, tough guys, and that ICE is not aggressive enough for him. And this comes as a surprise to a lot of people because we've seen ICE be so abusive. But traditionally, ICE has been the group that got warrants, that investigated, that went and plucked out specific people. Border Patrol are the guys who kind of round up whoever they see in sight. And that's what Bovino has been doing. And the testimony that we're hearing sounds like he is basically saying, arrest anybody who makes a lot of noise, arrest anybody who sounds provocative. So if he's going to get that much bang for his buck, Donald Trump, he's certainly going to approve those. Now, I don't know that he's entirely given up on the military, Lynn, because he loves seeing the military. He loves that intimidation factor, that kind of, sending the brass out, sending the tanks out. But you're right. He has the perfect out. He doesn't need to do that. He's got enough abusive people in the Border Patrol. And remember, he's got billions of dollars that Congress has allocated. So he can grow them enormously. He can make his own little army and not have all of those restrictions.
Right, and this just in, we have a terrific federal court reporter at the Sun Times, John Seidel, and let me just read you the lead of a story he just posted. I love giving you the
Yes.
real-time updates. U.S. Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino admitted tossing gas before being hit by a rock in Little Village. That's a heavily Mexican American and Mexican neighborhood in Chicago, and separately instructed officers to arrest protesters, open quote, who make hyperbolic comments in the heat of political demonstrations, close quote, court records show. Another paragraph. Bovino also allegedly refused to admit that he'd ever seen protesters who were not violent rioters, giving his agents cause to, quote, go hard against them. Now, this is according to attorneys who have spent days deposing Bovino behind closed doors and under oath. They pointed to portions of Bovino's testimony in a late night court filing Monday as they seek a preliminary injunction resisting the Fed's use of force in Chicago. To see the rest of it and the rest of our terrific coverage, please go to suntimes.com.
Absolutely. And John is fabulous.
We're in
John is a fabulous reporter.
And there is no paywall. You might have to maybe sign up with your email, but please read our fantastic coverage and our very illuminating photography that is going on to tell this story. But especially now, since we're talking about Bovino, this popped up, and this is apt to show in that, in my analysis, Bovino's kind of, metaphorically tossing, he admitted, we saw it in video. So here's the metaphor. He is tossing the tear gas can now, sorting it out later.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And by the way, that in and of itself is a violation of the existing court order. This was a hearing in part and the discovery because she was getting reports that the order was not being followed. So this sounds like it's going to be a problem for that, for them. And what she's going to do and what action she's going to take, we're going to have to see.
And
now,
then this past will go up to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals to see what they do. And some of these cases sooner or later are going to end up in front of the Supreme Court. I know we're watching as we speak the upcoming tariff case that might actually have a real ruling. So many of these Supreme Court cases have been intermittent, like we'll allow the hold until further proceedings or a stay for now. So the time is coming where we're going to get rulings from them, which I think will really also set the course and tone of the days ahead.
And to that point, Lynn, they recently asked for additional briefing in the Seventh Circuit appeal, asking whether the statute that authorizes deployment of the National Guard, when it uses the phrase that federal forces cannot otherwise, handle, whether that means the military. And if that means the military, then all of this deployment of the National Guard stuff is illegitimate because, of course, he hasn't deployed the regular military. So that may be a way of the Supreme Court putting the kibosh on all of this military kind of stuff. To your point, he can then rely on the Customs and Border Control. Let me go back to this weekend, which we had Halloween. We had some pleas from the mayor, from the governor for the enforcement to kind of lay off during Halloween so kids could go out and enjoy trick-or-treating. What actually happened?
Well, I could tell you anecdotally from people I know here, especially in neighborhoods where there had been enforcement, they're left with a lot of candy. Kids in certain neighborhoods just didn't come out in the way they would. Previous to the Halloween weekend, there was a Halloween parade in the community. Tear gas, the agents came in and tear gas kids. They didn't aim at kids, but you can't be oblivious to where you are. Maybe you're looking for an adult, right or wrong. But if you see a bunch of kids around, you don't throw tear gas in a kid parade. Or tear gas that could reach them. And this really led to these stepped up pleas to let kids have a Halloween weekend. Senator Dick Durbin talked about that they didn't do that in a speech at the Senate floor where he denounced the federal agents for going after events where kids could be present. I'm kind of boiling it down to that. I don't want to make Halloween into, oh my God, this is like a major religious holiday or something. But it is a place where children are celebrating it. It's a child's holiday. And there might be ways in law enforcement to do your job and just make it possible for kids to trick or treat too. And I think that's the frustration here. And I say this every time I talk to you. No elected official is against the lawful execution of warrants and the lawful pursuit of somebody who is illegally in this country who has a violent criminal background or is accused of a violent act. No one is against that in our sanctuary city and sanctuary state. Uh, so even with that being said, the idea of looking for people, warrants, trying to do it more retail than wholesale is just kind of lost right now when you see these wholesale efforts to scoop up people, see who you get in the wide net, and then again, my phrase, sort it out later. You know, I see there's all kinds of citizen activists who are recording this, Facebook, so many ways to do it. Last night, people were recording and reporting on, there's a lot of helicopters going above, above us, going here, going there. This is not the kind of operation that you do in stealth, Jen, because, they come, they ride heavy, and it's not always in a marked car. And as my other colleague at the Sun-Times, the marvelous Lauren Fitzpatrick, has recorded, they're still not wearing, all of them are still not wearing identification as they go out. And I don't know if Bovino was asked the latest on his wearing of a body camera, which we touched on last time we talked, but it is still a lot of anonymous masked agents roaming the streets
Yes.
who are taking people who uh, who in otherwise would have a right to be told why are they being taken and
Yes.
present
Yes.
papers if they have them. So we're also at the tough situation here where I know from our reporting at the Sun-Times and WBEZ, and I know anecdotally in my own reporting and talking to people here, there are people who are afraid to leave the house without a passport or some kind of identification with them in case they are caught up in some kind of a sweep or just approached because of how they look. And again, Jen, no one is going to take you and me off the street, two old ladies here, right? And I don't feel compelled to carry a passport, and I think neither do you. But this profiling is what's going on, and it is kind of naked, it's obvious, and it's happening in Chicago.
Absolutely. And this is intentional. They want people to self-deport. They want to scare people. They want to intimidate people. In our remaining time, Lynn, I want to switch gears to some good old Chicago politics.
Yeah.
You have what is really unusual in Chicago, which is a really Democratic area where if people get elected, they stay in office until they carry out feet first. But you've got a bunch of open seats, and something kind of remarkable happened just recently. Tell us about that.
Let me tell you about it. I've been covering in the delegation for decades until recently, and I don't remember in my, you know what? I didn't mean to call you an old lady. We're just ladies of a certain age, but I've been covering my delegation for about 100 years, and we have right now 5 open seats, and they're all around the city. They're all Democratic. So the latest is Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia, who surprised everybody yesterday by saying he's not going to run. And he did what I call the Chicago style switcheroo. And that is he filed, the deadline was yesterday to file your nominating petitions. Now, he's District 4, and the other 4 districts open where there are open seats, 9, Jan Schakowsky, 2, who's retiring, District 2, Robin Kelly running for Senate. District 8, Raja Krishnamurti running for Senate. Danny Davis retiring. Okay, in those districts, they have at least a dozen people running. So if Chuy's departure was known, one could just look at the evidence and say there'd be a bunch of people who would want to run. And in the March primary, you need a plurality win to get the nomination. It's Democratic, ball game over. So Chuy's switcheroo was his chief of staff late yesterday filed nominating petitions. So he will sooner in time pull his petitions. She'll be the only one on the ballot. And that is causing some outcry and consternation because, well, it's just not seen as the way becoming to Chuy Garcia, who has held himself out as one of the progressives, the anti-machine guy here. And look at what he did to anoint a successor. And, he didn't even do it for a family member. I just had an alderman retire and he put in the fix so his son got it. That's whatever. I think Luis Gutierrez, when he retired, did a version of a switcheroo for Chuy, but this and Bill Lipinski installed his son in in another version of a switcheroo, and so Chuy, his legacy, we have to hear from him here and explain. I'm not surprised that he decided not to run. He's had some heavy family issues go on in the past year, but this is so we have those 5 races that are big, and the ball will be in the primary court. And we also have the race to replace Dick Durbin, where you have 3 main candidates, as I said, Robin Kelly, Raja Krishnamurti, and Julia Stratton, who is J.B. Pritzker's lieutenant governor.
Well, Lynn, you are going to have your hands full next year covering Chicago politics. In some ways, it's the kind of political festival that one dreams of, with so many races and so many characters. So as always, Lynn, thank you for bringing us the latest on Chicago. We'll continue to follow those races. And of course, the immigration story. We will look forward to having you back next week.
Thank you, Jen.